The Galactic Concord Assembly had stood for over 300 years as the heart of peace among the stars. Its great chamber, built on a floating platform above the clouds of Virelli's prime, shimmered with light from 1,000 alien suns. Species from every corner of the known galaxy gathered there, tall insect-like Cathar with clicking mandibles, smooth-skinned Zolani who breathed through gills even in dry air, and the quiet, crystalline Virellans whose voices rang like wind chimes. They argued, bargained, and sometimes even laughed together. But one thing had always been certain: humanity would be there. Humans had joined the assembly 70 years ago, after their first clumsy warp jump brought them into contact with the Cathar patrol near Alpha Centauri. Back then they were seen as loud, emotional, and far too eager to prove themselves, but over time they earned respect. They rebuilt war-torn worlds after the Dravik uprisings. They shared medical advances that saved millions of lives across species lines. Their diplomats, though often blunt, were honest. Their ships, though smaller than most, were fast and clever. And when the Virellan homeworld was struck by a solar flare storm, it was human engineers who helped shield their cities from the radiation. So when Ambassador Daniel Carter walked into the central chamber on Cycle 472, no one expected anything unusual. He wore his usual dark gray suit, his face calm, his eyes steady. He carried no data pads, no scrolls, no ceremonial tokens. Just himself. The other delegates barely looked up from their debates about mining rights in the Helios Rift. The Cathar delegate, Vrak, was mid-sentence, waving a clawed limb as he argued for stricter border controls. The Zolani elder, Talara, sat quietly in her water-filled pod, her large black eyes fixed on Carter as he stepped onto the speaking platform. A hush fell over the room as Carter activated the universal translator. His voice, clear and low, filled the chamber without echo. "The Terran Union hereby withdraws from the Galactic Concord Assembly," he said. "Effective immediately. All treaties, trade agreements, and defense pacts are null and void. Earth will no longer participate in assembly decisions, host conquered vessels, or respond to diplomatic inquiries. This is not a negotiation. It is a statement." Then he turned and walked out. No one moved for a full minute. The silence was so deep that the hum of the anti-grav plates beneath the floor seemed deafening. Vrak's mandibles froze mid-click. A young Virellan delegate dropped a data crystal, and it shattered on the floor with a sound like breaking glass. Talara slowly closed her eyes as if she had been expecting this all along. Outside the chamber, chaos erupted. Human staff had already vanished from their offices. The embassy on Virelli's prime, once a bustling hub of translators, scientists, and cultural liaisons, was empty. Lights were off. Doors locked. Even the garden in the courtyard where Earth's delegation had planted cherry trees decades ago had been stripped of all human-made objects. Only the trees remained, blooming pink in the alien wind. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. On Cathar Prime, military commanders demanded emergency briefings. In Zolani coral cities, scholars debated what Earth could possibly be hiding. On neutral trade stations, merchants panicked as human cargo ships stopped answering hails. Within hours, every human-linked trade route went dark. No more shipments of Terran wheat. No more neural interface chips from Luna. No more Earth-made entertainment streams that had become wildly popular among younger aliens. What confused everyone most was the lack of reason. No war had been declared. No insult had been given. Earth hadn't been threatened. In fact, just 3 weeks earlier, the Assembly had voted to increase funding for a joint human-Virellan deep space observatory. Everything had seemed normal, but Earth knew something the others didn't for years. Human scientists had been detecting strange signals from the edge of known space, pulses too regular to be natural, too faint to be traced. At first they thought it was cosmic noise. Then they realized the pulses were growing stronger, closer, and they weren't coming from one source. They were coming from hundreds, thousands, maybe more. The Terran Union had tried to bring this to the Assembly's attention twice. Both times they were dismissed. The Cathar called it human paranoia. The Virellans suggested it was interference from old human satellites. Even Talara, usually open-minded, gently advised Earth to calm their nerves and focus on real threats. But Earth's leaders had watched the data. They had run the simulations, and they knew something was coming. Something old, something that didn't care about treaties or diplomacy. Staying in the Assembly would mean waiting for consensus, for votes, for endless debates while the clock ticked down. Earth couldn't afford that, not anymore, so they chose silence. They chose isolation. They chose to prepare alone. Back on Earth, cities didn't panic. There were no riots, no mass evacuations. The government had been quietly readying for this moment for years. Underground factories powered up. Military reserves were activated without fanfare. Schools added new courses in astrophysics and emergency engineering. On Mars, the domed colonies doubled their food production. On Titan, ice miners began reinforcing tunnels that could double as shelters. No one told the public everything, but everyone understood something had changed. Flags flew at half-mast for 3 days, not for the dead, but for the end of an era. Children stopped drawing pictures of alien friends in school. News channels stopped broadcasting galactic entertainment shows. Instead, they showed documentaries about Earth's history. Wars survived, plagues overcome, oceans cleaned, skies healed. The message was clear: humanity would stand on its own. Meanwhile, in the vastness between stars, human scout ships turned away from conquered patrol routes and vanished into uncharted sectors. Their mission wasn't to explore. It was to watch, to listen, to be ready. The galaxy watched too, but with confusion, not understanding. They saw Earth's withdrawal as arrogance, as betrayal, as weakness disguised as pride. They did not see the truth. Earth wasn't running away. It was drawing a line, and beyond that line, in the cold dark where no light reached, something stirred. The galaxy would learn soon enough why humans had left. But by then, it might already be too late. Deep beneath the snow-covered peaks of the Rocky Mountains, inside a bunker lined with steel and silence, President Elena Ruiz stood before a wall of live feeds. Each screen showed a different part of the Sol system: Mars domes glowing under red dust storms, orbital shipyards around Jupiter's moons humming with activity, Titan's methane lakes reflecting the pale light of Saturn. None of the images showed panic. None showed fear, but all showed work. Constant, urgent, tireless work. She turned to her council, a small group of men and women in plain uniforms, no medals, no titles on their sleeves. "They think we left because we're scared," she said, her voice low but firm. "Or because we got tired of playing nice. But we didn't walk away from the assembly to hide. We walked away so we could move." Across the room, Kyle Brooks, a young engineer with grease still under his nails from a night shift at the Luna dry dock, nodded. He had helped retrofit old cargo haulers into sensor jammers in just 72 hours. Maria Lopez, a retired fleet commander brought back into service, stood with her arms crossed, eyes fixed on a simulation of Neptune's orbit. She had spent the last month teaching civilian pilots how to fly combat evasive patterns, using nothing but farm drones and old flight manuals. Outside the bunker, the world carried on. Markets opened. Trains ran. Children went to school. But beneath the surface, everything had changed. Factories that once made solar panels now cast hull plates for warships. Universities paused regular classes to train rapid response medics. Even bakeries in small towns began storing extra flour, not for bread but for long-term ration packs. Earth wasn't preparing for war with the galaxy. It was preparing for something worse. For decades, human scientists had tracked faint energy echoes from deep space, rhythmic, repeating, growing stronger. At first, they thought it was natural. Then they realized no known cosmic event could produce such patterns. The signals weren't random noise. They were structured, purposeful, and they were coming closer. The assembly had laughed when Earth raised the alarm. "You see ghosts in the static?" a Cathar delegate had sneered. "Your species is young. You fear the dark." But Earth knew better. The data didn't lie. Something ancient was waking up. Something that had watched civilizations rise and fall like tides. And it was heading toward the inner systems. Staying in the conquered would have meant waiting for votes, for compromises, for endless debates while the threat crept closer. Earth couldn't afford that, so they chose to act alone. On Mars, colonists fortified their habitats not with weapons, but with reinforced shielding and hidden escape tunnels. They planted extra crops in underground hydroponic bays, enough to feed 10,000 people for 5 years. In the icy canyons of Valles Marineris, engineers buried power cores that could run independently if the main grid failed. On Titan, where the air was thick with methane and the ground crunched like frozen sugar, workers sealed off entire sectors of the colony. They rerouted fuel lines, built emergency comms relays, and trained every adult, scientists, cooks, teachers, in basic defense protocols. No one was told the full truth, but everyone understood. Earth was no longer part of the galactic family. From now on, they protected their own. Back in the Sol system, shipyards that had been quiet for years roared back to life. The old orbital ring around Earth, once used for tourism and cargo, now pulsed with welding sparks day and night. Ships with names like Odyssey, Valkyrie, and Iron Resolve took shape in the void, sleek, black-hulled, built not for show, but for survival. Their engines used a new kind of drive, one that bent space without leaving a traceable signature. Their weapons weren't just powerful, they were smart, able to adapt mid-battle based on enemy behavior. Admiral Jason Ford, who had once commanded peacekeeping patrols along the Dravik border, now oversaw the entire Sol defense grid. He didn't wear a fancy uniform, just a gray jacket with a small earth pin on the lapel. He spent his days reviewing fleet drills, testing new shield harmonics, and walking the decks of half-built ships to talk to the crews. "We're not building an army," he told a group of nervous recruits. "We're building a shield, and shields don't talk, they stand." Meanwhile, Earth scientists worked in sealed labs, analyzing every scrap of data from the outer rim. They studied the signal patterns, mapped their origin points, and ran thousands of simulations. In one lab beneath Geneva, Dr. Lena Patel discovered something chilling. The pulses weren't just signals. They were probes, tiny self-replicating machines drifting through space, scanning every system they passed, reporting back to something far away. That was the final confirmation. Earth wasn't being watched by a fleet or an empire. It was being surveyed by an intelligence so vast it treated entire star systems like data points. The Assembly still didn't believe it. Rumors spread that Earth had gone mad with power, that they were hoarding technology, that they planned to dominate the galaxy alone. Pirate clans, sensing weakness, began raiding former human trade lanes. The Cathar accused Earth of abandoning its duty. The Virellan sent quiet messages asking for clarification, but received no reply. Only Talara, the Zolani elder, seemed to understand. In a private transmission to her council, she said, "When humans stop explaining, they start acting. And when they act, the stars tremble." On Earth, there were no speeches, no grand announcements, just quiet determination. Families packed emergency kits. Schools ran drills where children practiced sealing airlocks and identifying distress signals. Farmers stored seeds in vaults deep underground. Artists painted murals of Earth, not as a planet, but as a promise. The world wasn't afraid. It was ready. And as the first of the new warships completed its final systems check near the moon, its engines humming like a sleeping beast, the people of Earth looked up at the night sky not with hope, but with watchfulness. They knew the galaxy was watching them too, with confusion, with anger, with dread. But Earth no longer cared what the galaxy thought. They had a different audience now. Something out there was listening, and Earth intended to be heard. 6 months after Earth left the Assembly, the silence around Sol grew heavier than any war. Trade ships that once buzzed between human ports and alien markets now floated empty, their routes abandoned. Diplomatic channels stayed dead. Even emergency beacons from human vessels went unanswered, unless they originated inside the Sol system. The galaxy whispered that Earth had gone rogue, that it was building weapons in secret, that it had lost its mind. But no one knew the truth, until the first ship vanished. It was a Cathar battlecruiser, the Iron Mandible, one of the largest warships in the conquered fleet. It had been chasing a band of Dravik raiders near the Helios Rift, a stretch of space once patrolled jointly by humans and Cathar. In the chaos of the pursuit, the Iron Mandible crossed an invisible line into what used to be a shared human exclusion zone around the outer edge of Sol's influence. It was a mistake, not an act of aggression. The Cathar captain even sent a standard clearance request on an old human frequency. Expecting a routine reply, there was no reply. One moment, the Iron Mandible was broadcasting its position, engines flaring as it adjusted course. The next, every signal from it cut off. No explosion, no distress call, no debris field. Just nothing, like it had been erased from existence. The Cathar High Command panicked. They sent 3 scout ships to investigate. All 3 disappeared within hours, vanishing without a trace. No wreckage, no energy spikes, not even a whisper on long-range sensors. It was as if space itself had swallowed them whole. News spread fast. The assembly called an emergency session. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding answers. The Cathar accused Earth of launching a sneak attack. The Virulons urged calm but looked uneasy. Talara, the Zolani elder, sat in her water pod, her gills fluttering slowly, her eyes distant. She didn't speak, but her silence spoke louder than any accusation. Earth said nothing. Then came the second incident. A Zolani science vessel. The Coral Whisper was mapping gravitational ripples near Neptune. It was a peaceful mission approved by the conquered, and well outside any contested zone. The crew included 3 young researchers and 2 veteran navigators. They were collecting data on ice ring formations when their ship's comms went dark. This time, something was different. Exactly 12 minutes after the Coral Whisper vanished, a single transmission crackled across every frequency in the sector. Human, Cathar, Zolani, even pirate bands. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't coded. It was just a voice, calm and clear, speaking in plain Terran English. This sector is under Earth jurisdiction. Leave and do not return. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. No threats. No explanations. Just a boundary drawn in sound. The galaxy froze. For the first time since Earth's withdrawal, fear replaced confusion. The Cathar demanded military action. The Dravik Syndicate, always eager for chaos, began gathering ships near the edge of human space, convinced Earth was bluffing. They believed the disappearances were tricks, cloaking fields, sensor ghosts, propaganda. They thought Earth, alone and isolated, would fold under pressure. They were wrong. What no one outside Sol knew was that Earth hadn't just built ships. It had built a new kind of defense, one that didn't rely on brute force but on control. Hidden drones no bigger than a hand floated in the dark between planets. They didn't fire weapons. They disrupted signals, bent light, and scrambled navigation systems. Cross into their zone without clearance, and your ship's computers would fail, your engines would lock. Your crew would be blind, deaf, and helpless, long before any human weapon fired a shot. The iron mandible hadn't been destroyed. It had been disabled, towed silently to a hidden hangar near Pluto and held for study. The same went for the scout ships and the Coral Whisper. Earth wasn't killing anyone. It was sending a message. This is ours now. Back on Earth, people watched the news with quiet eyes. There were no celebrations, no cheers, just nods of understanding. They knew the galaxy would test them. They had expected it, and they had prepared. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Elena Ruiz reviewed the sensor logs from the Neptune incident. "We gave them every chance to stay out," she said to Admiral Ford. He stood beside her, arms behind his back, gaze fixed on the star map glowing on the wall. "They'll come back," Ford said. "Not with scientists next time." "With soldiers," Ruiz nodded. "Then we'll be ready." On Mars, emergency drills doubled. On Titan, fuel reserves were moved to deeper vaults. In orbit, the Aegis, to Earth's newest flagship, completed its final weapon calibration. Its hull was matte black, its shape jagged like broken glass, designed to scatter sensors rather than reflect them. Inside, crews trained in total silence, communicating only through hand signals and light pulses. They knew noise could be tracked. They knew hesitation could be fatal. The Dravik Syndicate didn't wait long. Within weeks, they announced a peacekeeping mission to restore order in the Sol sector. 300 ships gathered at the edge of human space, freighters retrofitted with plasma cannons, old warhulks patched with scrap metal, even a few stolen Cathar interceptors. Their leader, a scarred warlord named Kor, broadcast a message to all channels: surrender your systems, or be erased. The galaxy held its breath. Earth did not reply. But deep in the void, near the icy rings of Saturn, human fleets powered up their drives, not with a roar but with a hum so low it couldn't be heard, not even by the most sensitive alien ears. The Dravik thought they were marching on a broken, lonely world. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap, built by a species that had spent 70 years learning how the galaxy thought and then spent 6 months learning how to break it. As the first Dravik ship crossed the boundary marker near Uranus, its comms fizzed with static. Its navigation screen went blank. Its engines stuttered and died, and from the darkness ahead, something moved. Not a ship. Not a weapon. A shadow with teeth. The galaxy had tested Earth. Now Earth would show them what happened to those who did. The Dravik armada arrived at the edge of Sol space with thunder and pride. 300 ships patched together from stolen parts and old war scrap formed a jagged line across the void. Their hulls were painted with crude symbols of conquest. Their comms blared threats in a dozen languages. At their center floated the Blood Fang, a massive command vessel once belonging to a fallen Cathar warlord, now covered in Dravik battle scars and dripping with stolen tech. Kor, their leader, stood on the bridge, his face split by a grin as he watched the silent human system ahead. "Look at it," he said to his crew. "No patrols, no defenses, just empty space and a blue dot." They ran out of courage. He ordered the fleet forward. The first wave crossed the invisible line near Uranus without resistance. No alarms, no warnings, just the cold dark and the distant glow of the sun. Kor laughed. "Earth is already ours." Then the lights went out. Not the ship lights. The stars. One moment, the Dravik fleet saw the familiar constellations. The next, the sky went black. No stars, no planets, no reference points. Their sensors screamed with false readings. Navigation systems spun wildly. Engines sputtered as if starved of power. Comms filled with static so thick it burned speakers. Before they could react, shapes emerged from the darkness. Human warships, sleek, black, and silent, slid between the Dravik lines like ghosts. They didn't fire massive beams or launch swarms of missiles. They moved with impossible precision, cutting power relays with focused EMP bursts, jamming comms with harmonic pulses, and disabling weapons with micro-drones that crawled into weapon ports and fried circuits from the inside. The Bloodfang tried to turn, but its thrusters failed. Kor shouted orders, but his crew couldn't hear him over the shriek of failing systems. On the view screen, he saw a human ship, smaller than his but faster, glide past his bridge window. No lights, no markings, just smooth dark metal reflecting nothing. Then came the voice, not over comms, not through speakers. It played directly in their helmets, in their neural implants, in the very air of their cabins. Calm, clear, human. "Drop your weapons. Power down your drives. You will not be harmed." Kor roared and fired his last working turret. The shot went wide, vanishing into nothing. In response, a single pulse struck the Bloodfang's main reactor. Not enough to destroy it, just enough to shut it down. One by one, Dravik ships went dark. Not exploded, not shattered, just disabled, floating coffins in the void, crews alive but helpless. Within 2 hours, the entire armada was silent. 300 ships captured without a single life lost. At the heart of it all floated the Aegis. Admiral Jason Ford stood on its bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the surrender unfold on his screen. His face showed no triumph, no anger. "Just focus, bring in the tugs," he said. "Tow them to the holding zone near Titan. Strip their weapons. Scan for hidden tech. Then release them." His second-in-command, a young officer named Lisa Tran, frowned. "Release them? After they threatened Earth?" Ford nodded. "We're not here to punish. We're here to protect. Let them go back and tell the galaxy what they saw." And that's exactly what happened. The Dravik crews were given food, water, and basic medical checks. Their ships were stripped of weapons and tracking devices, then handed back with just enough power to limp home. Kor, humiliated and furious, was allowed to keep his command chair, but nothing else. As his ship drifted away from Sol, he looked back one last time. The human fleet was already gone, vanished, as if it had never been there. But the message remained. Back on Earth, there were no victory parades. No news headlines shouting "Earth defeats invaders." The government released a single statement. Unauthorized entry into Sol space will result in immediate neutralization of threat capabilities. No harm will come to non-combatants. Do not test this boundary again. The galaxy didn't know what to believe. The Dravik claimed Earth had used dark magic. The Cathar demanded proof of the battle. The Viralans sent quiet observers who returned shaken and silent. Only Talara, the Zolani elder, spoke openly. They did not fight to win, she told her council. They fought to show they do not need to. In the weeks that followed, strange things happened near Sol. Pirate raids stopped. Smugglers rerouted. Even Cathar patrols gave the system a wide berth. Ships that drifted too close reported sudden system failures. Then a calm voice telling them to turn back. No violence. No demands. Just order inside Sol. Life continued. Children played in parks under blue skies. Farmers harvested crops. Scientists studied the stars. But everyone knew the truth. Earth was no longer part of the galactic community. It was something else now. A silent guardian, a hidden fortress, a line that could not be crossed. On Mars, a young girl asked her teacher why the stars looked different at night. "Because we're watching them now," the teacher replied. "Not the other way around." In orbit, the Aegis and its sister ships patrolled in silence, their engines tuned to frequencies no alien sensor could detect. They didn't hide. They simply existed beyond notice, like shadows that moved when no one was looking. The Dravik Syndicate never recovered. Their reputation shattered. Their recruits vanished. Within a year, they were little more than scattered raiders, too afraid to even whisper Earth's name. And Earth? Earth kept building, kept watching, kept waiting, because the real threat wasn't the Dravik. It wasn't the Cathar. It wasn't even the Assembly. It was the silence beyond the edge of known space, the silence that pulsed with purpose, that grew stronger every day. Earth had shown the galaxy its strength not to boast, but to buy time. Time to prepare for what was truly coming. And as the human fleet vanished once more into the dark, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, listening. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy understood. Humanity was not a member of the family anymore. It was the watchdog at the gate, and the gate was closed. After the Dravik Armada limped away from Sol space, the galaxy fell into a strange quiet. No one attacked Earth again. No one even came close. Ships that once passed through human sectors now gave Sol a wide berth, as if the very space around it had become sacred, or cursed. The Galactic Concord Assembly tried to hold emergency meetings, but half the delegates no longer showed up. The Cathar withdrew entirely, claiming Earth had become a rogue power too dangerous to engage. The Virulin stayed, but their messages went unanswered. Only the Zolani remained steady, sending small science vessels to the edge of human space, not to spy but to observe. And what they saw confused them more than ever. Earth wasn't building an empire. It wasn't hoarding resources or launching invasions. Instead, it opened limited trade with neutral systems, exchanging medical nanites for rare minerals, sharing clean water tech with drought-stricken colonies, even rescuing stranded freighters far from Sol without asking for anything in return. No speeches, no demands, just quiet help, delivered like a favor between neighbors who barely spoke. On Virelli's Prime, the great chamber of the Assembly sat half-empty most days. Dust gathered on the human delegation's old seats. The cherry trees Earth had planted still bloomed every spring, pink petals drifting over silent benches. Some species called for sanctions. Others whispered that Earth had gone mad with isolation. But Talara, the Zolani elder, watched the data streams from her people's border scouts and said nothing. She had seen enough. Back in Sol space, life moved with calm purpose. On Earth, cities ran on clean fusion power. Farms grew food under domes that could seal in seconds. Schools taught children not just math and history, but how to read star charts and operate emergency comms. On Mars, new tunnels were dug deeper into the rock, lined with hydroponic gardens and shielded labs. On Titan, methane harvesters worked day and night, fueling ships that never left the system but were always ready. The human fleet didn't parade. It patrolled, silent, invisible. Ships like the Aegis drifted near Neptune or hid in asteroid shadows, their sensors always listening, always watching. They didn't chase pirates or enforce laws. They simply made sure nothing hostile entered Sol space. And if something did, by accident or arrogance, it vanished for a few hours, then reappeared outside the boundary with a warning and a full systems check. No harm, no shame. Just a line that could not be crossed. The galaxy began to understand. Earth wasn't hiding. It was waiting. Deep in the Rocky Mountain bunker, President Elena Ruiz reviewed new data from the outer rim. The strange pulses from deep space were stronger now. Closer. They came from a region beyond the Helios Rift, a place no ship had ever mapped. Human scouts had tried to follow the signal trail, but each time they got too close, their instruments failed. Not from damage, from something that bent reality itself. "We're running out of time," she told Admiral Ford during a late-night briefing. He stood by the star map, arms crossed, eyes tired but sharp. "Then we use the time we have," he replied. "Every day we hold the line here is a day they get stronger out there." He meant the people, the builders, the teachers, the farmers, the ones who kept Earth alive while the stars watched, and Earth was getting stronger. New ships launched every month, each one faster, smarter, quieter than the last. Engineers like Kyle Brooks developed shields that could absorb energy and feed it back into the ship's core. Scientists like Dr. Lena Patel created early warning systems that could detect the faintest ripple in space-time. Even artists contributed, painting murals of Earth not as a planet but as a promise to survive. The galaxy noticed the change. Trade requests from neutral worlds increased. Refugees from war-torn systems begged for asylum near Titan. Earth said yes, but only if they agreed to live by Earth's rules. No weapons, no spying, no interference. Most agreed without hesitation. They had seen what happened to the Dravik. They knew Earth meant what it said. In the void between stars, human scouts pushed farther than ever before. Not to conquer, not to claim. Just to watch, to listen, to be the first to see what was coming. One night, a scout ship near the edge of known space picked up a new signal. Not the old pulses. This was different, clearer, stronger, almost like a voice. It lasted only 3 seconds before vanishing. But in those 3 seconds, every human on the bridge felt a chill. Not from cold, but from recognition. Something out there knew they were watching. Back on Earth, no alarm sounded. No panic spread. People just worked a little harder, checked their systems a little more carefully, held their loved ones a little tighter. The galaxy still didn't understand. They thought Earth had become cold, proud, distant. But the truth was simpler. Humanity had grown up. It had played by the galaxy's rules for decades, only to learn those rules meant nothing when real danger came. So it made its own rules, not for power, for protection. On a quiet evening in New York, a boy stood on a rooftop with his grandfather looking up at the stars. "Are they still out there?" he asked. "The stars?" the old man said. "The others, the ones who left us." The grandfather smiled. "They never left us, son. We just stopped needing them." And in that moment, across the Sol system, millions of humans did the same thing. They looked up, not with fear, but with quiet strength. The galaxy watched, in dread as humans, abandoned the assembly. But what it didn't see was the real reason. Earth didn't leave because it lost faith in the galaxy. It left because it finally believed in itself. And as the first true warning from deep space flickered across hidden sensors near Pluto, Earth stood ready, not as a member of a union, but as a world that had learned to stand alone. The stars held their breath and humanity waited.